So the Rose Cup is the flavor of choice for the Silph Arena in the month of February. If you don't know what the Silph Arena is or what the Rose Cup is, it's basically ranked competitive PvP, but outside of the Pokemon Go app. So if you want to know the specific rules and restrictions of this cup, check out silph.gg and get learned up on it. So in this video, I'm going to go over the basic makeup of the Rose Cup meta and some simple team building advice to help you make a team and get ready for the Rose Cup. Speaking of Rose Cups, I am going to the Rose Cup Mega Cup in Portland, Oregon, and in Milwaukee at the end of the month, February 28th, at Landmark Lanes. I am hosting a Rose Cup as well. So if you are in the Wisconsin area, or perhaps even from Illinois, you want to train on up to the Rose Cup, check it out. Get your butt kicked by Ryan Swag himself. Maybe kick my butt. And before we get into my infographic here, if you want more details on the Rose Cup picks, definitely check out the Rose Cup meta article on GamePress by Lorma96. It also features a alternative infographic if you want a different way of imagining this meta for your team building purposes. But yeah, Lorma goes over each of the matchups in great detail, letting you know the full extent of what you need to know about each individual Pokemon for this particular cup. So starting out, first Pokemon I want to highlight is Probopass. Probopass is quite possibly the premier staple for this cup. And the reason why is because he's got a big nose and a fabulous mustache. And, well, not only that, but he does a really good job of walling the charm users. The other premier, like, steel-type Pokemon here is the Steelix. Steelix doesn't do so hot against the Charmers because you're throwing that Dragon Tail damage. And because the Dragon Tail being resisted and Crunch being resisted by the Charm Attackers actually have a way to overcome Steelix. Probopass, they don't really have a really good time against him. On top of that, the flying types, or quote-unquote flying types, because the Alolan Marowak is in there, they also do good against the charm users and have some alternative stuff that they can do as well. But Probopass also does a great job of beating them as well. So at the end of the day, if there's a Pokemon to have on your team in the Rose Cup, it's definitely Probopass. As far as the fast moves are concerned, Rock Throw is a great way to just beat these Pokemon down without having to throw charge moves that much. Spark will let you use your charge moves more rapidly though. Personally, I'm in the Spark camp, but I'm on Team Instinct, so what do I gotta say? And as far as the charge moves goes, Thunderbolt has no place here. Definitely want to have Magnet Bomb and Rock Slide. So if Probopass is so good, what beats it super well? Well, we got the fighting type Pokemon down here. Machamp is actually kind of a Chad. Now that it has access to Cross Chop, it's able to just blitz stuff down with that early damage. And Rock Slide is really good neutral coverage for most things in this cup. Big claim to fame for Machamp is that it actually handles Sableye super well. And most things don't want to deal with its Rock Slide. Of course, you have the bread and butter, the basic, the Meta Chad over here. The moveset you want on Medicham is going to be Ice Punch with the Dynamic Punch. The Dynamic Punch can let you overcome Skarmory and definitely is a heavier hit on your opposing fighting type brethren. And then Ice Punch is a good coverage hit, allowing you to retaliate against the Glypham and other things. So Medicham, really good, really bulky, probably the bulkiest fighting type Pokemon out of the group. Then we got a newcomer to the group, that's Scraggy down here. So charm users absolutely obliterate Scraggy, but the good thing about Scraggy, the reason why he's hanging out with us, is because he has resistance to ghost type attacks. So ghost type Pokemon don't really like dealing with him, and he actually has some solid outs against the Alolan Marowak. The Alolan Marowak, Big Nuke, Shadow Ball. Hi, I resist Shadow Ball, and I got Dark Pulse to back myself up with. So yeah, Scraggy, definitely a deadly Pokemon to have on your team. Just watch out for that charm, and I guess other fighting types. Dark types also weak to fighting type, yeah. Then finally we got the spicy chicken over here, Blaziken, and Blaziken has the same problems that it has had in other cups, and that's that fast move damage can generally just break him down, even in matchups you think Blaziken is supposed to win. So Blaziken still has that issue going on, but as always, Blaziken also has the most deadly charge moves. If you're able to land a Blast Burn from Blaziken, you're probably going to take out or just severely damage the thing you were aiming at. So Blaziken, definitely a powerful Pokemon. But as always, main risk to Blaziken is that, fast move damage does a really heavy number on it because it's got like no defense whatsoever. So if fighting types have the anti-Probopass job basically covered, well, why are Rhydon and Rhyperior over here? Well, big thing that they got is Mud Slap. Yeah, so Mud Slap, they're able to just slap Probopass down, but you're thinking, well, counter users can just counter this guy down. So, okay, why are they here, Mr. Swag? Well, they also have better outs to the Flyers than what the fighting types do. Flyers generally beat the fighting types, but these guys are pretty threatening to them with their heavy Stone Edge damage. And in fact, Surf, at the very least, Surf can get the job done most of the time, which is pretty nice. If a Charm user catches them, they're still going to go down from the Charm user, but if they throw the Stone Edge, and they don't shield it, well, that matchup just got flipped. And if they do shield it, well, then you got a shield out of them, which is probably better than what most of the fighting type Pokemon can do when they're pitted up against a Charmer. So if Charm's so good, which Charm user are you going to want to pick for your team? Well, they all have their pluses and minuses. When it comes to Clefable, Clefable is a pure fairy type Pokemon, so unlike Wigglytuff, it takes resisted damage from the counter users, which is nice. And on top of that, because Meteor Mash comes so soon, it can actually clown Steelix if it's unable to land any baits onto it. So Clefable, really nice for that reason. When it comes to Wigglytuff, Wigglytuff has the normal subtyping, so it does take a bit more damage from the counter users, but it has a more winnable matchup, or a more playable matchup, I should say, against the Alola Marowak, because Alola Marowak can't just land the Shadow Ball. It can win with a series of Bone Clubs still, but it is a more dragged out fight, to the point where you might even be able to swap your Wigglytuff out and bring something else in onto the Alola Marowak, displacing that rock, paper, scissors a little bit there. On top of that, Alola Marowak just completely shuts down the Haunter here. Haunter does not want to see Wigglytuff. You could run Sludge Bomb, but yeah, Sludge Bomb Haunter loses so much too, so it's like, yeah, so Wigglytuff really good at shutting down Haunter. If you think you'll see Haunters at your cup, I'd say bring Wigglytuff. And in between the two of them, who wins the mirror? Well, they both lose to each other. It's just fast move damage. So if one of you throws a charge move, you'll get the shield from your opponent, but you'll lose the matchup. So it's up to you. Do you want to get shield advantage or do you want to get switch advantage? So about Gramble. Gramble's whole thing is that it's a more glass cannon-y kind of version of the Charmers, and it has earlier and better charge moves than they do, for the most part. Well, let me play out a scenario for you. You bring in your Wigglytuff, and you just completely farm, destroy the heck out of a, what's it called, Sableye. Yeah. And then in comes Probopass. Probopass is going to destroy you with Magnet Bomb. There isn't enough time for you to switch out. You are locked into this fight now, and what, you throw Play Rough? Yeah, Probopass doesn't care about Play Rough. Like, whatever, man. Or let's say you're Clefable. You throw Meteor Mash. Probopass doesn't really care about that either. Probopass is still going to wreck your life. But Close Combat, on the other hand, yeah, Probopass is going to have to watch out for that one. So, yeah. Gramble definitely has some swag going for it with that close combat and the crunch damage, giving it some interesting outs against Pokemon that may underestimate it or play it like any other fairy type Pokemon. The problem with it though is that it will lose to the other charm users just straight fast move damage. But is it really that big of a detriment? Because you do get to reach your charge move before they do, and then you throw it, and if they don't shield it, hey, you just won. So yeah, Gramble, definitely a solid Pokemon to consider for your team. Then finally we have the Flyers, plus Alola Marowak. And the main reason to highlight Alola Marowak here is because it does have the best outs to Probopass. You just throw Bone Club at it. Probopass doesn't like taking double super effective damage from the Bone Club, so definitely a powerful Pokemon for that reason alone. And then you also have the Shadow Ball to back it up. And with that combination, as long as you have some energy advantage on your Alola Marowak and at least one shield, it can be one of the most deadly Pokemon in the entire cup. So Probopass is definitely a staple, in my opinion, and I'd also consider Alola Marowak to be a staple too for this reason. It loses to the other staple, but it has the best outs for its role against that staple. Then you also have Charizard to consider. Charizard's really cool because it has Blast Burn. Blast Burn does this dump truck tier damage and just annihilates most Pokemon in this cup, if not dealing a hefty chunk of damage even with resistance. And then it also has Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw, this guy baits with Bone Club. Dragon Claw is like a bait move that can actually kind of hurt things too. So it's like a more deadly version of Alola Marowak, but it does lose to Alola Marowak, and it is more frail than Alola Marowak, so it has to watch out. A good example of its fragility is that the charm users could spend 2 shields to just basically force the win against the guy. So Charizard, watch out. Then we got Golbat over here. And Golbat's kind of like a tankier version of Charizard. It's not as threatening because it doesn't have the Blast Burn damage to just annihilate things, but it does have the heavy Shadow Ball damage to threaten stuff with. And with Poison Fang, it's able to overcome Charizard depending on shield baiting situations, and it has a heavy hit to just say no to charm users. So overall, Golbat, pretty solid pick. Then finally, we got Skarmory. And Skarmory's main claim to fame is that it doesn't get completely destroyed by the Drapion. Drapion kind of cuts through the flying and ghost type Pokemon like a hot knife through butter, but Skarmory kind of says no to it. So this guy's got to be a little bit wary of the Skarmory there. Big problem that Skarmory has though is that the fighting types do hurt it a lot because they deal neutral damage to it. So watch out, Skarmory. So this is the basic paper, scissors, rock lizard Spock of the meta to help you with your team building. As far as team building goes, I'd say definitely pick Probopass, probably pick Alola Marowak, pick another flyer that speaks to you, pick your favorite charm user, pick a fighting type, and then maybe consider one of these two guys. You don't have to use them, maybe consider them. Another thing to note about this group down here is Rhyperior and Rhydon actually have like the same stats, like different levels but same stats with similar IVs, which is interesting. The benefit to Rhyperior is that you could have Smackdown and you could have Superpower, and until your opponent knows precisely what moveset your Rhyperior is running, they don't. So it's like a more bench pressure, tricky kind of Pokemon than Rhydon. But if you don't get the right IVs for it, Rhydon does the Mud Slap, Stone Edge, Surf job just as well as this guy would. No opportunity for other spice though. Alright Swag, that's only 5 Pokemon. What do I do for my 6th slot then if these guys are a maybe? Well, you can look over at the spice bin over here. Yeah, so you got Gliscor. Gliscor is interesting because it can beat most things if it can land an Earthquake, but if it doesn't land Earthquake, then it can lose against most things, so it's kind of awkward for it. Another problem with Gliscor is that it basically always loses to Charmers, and it struggles against other flying type Pokemon, so it's not super easy for Gliscor to just show up and win stuff. So Gliscor has this bait dependent advantage over 3 groups here, and because it's bait dependent, 50-50, right? So cut that in the middle, that's only advantage over 1.5 groups, mathematically. And these other groups are getting 2 groups. This guy's only getting 1.5. I'm not too hot on the Gliscor, but I do see the appeal. And if your opponent loses that bait situation, well, you just won pretty big. So Gliscor, very deadly. There's also Gligar. Gligar is like the more tanky, watered down version of Gliscor. And it's kind of nice. I feel like you limit yourself because you can't throw charge moves as quickly, so it's not as deadly as Gliscor is. But it does have a more consistent matchup against the fighters, but it's like, you're not necessarily here to just beat the fighters. If you're just here to beat the fighters, you'd use the flying type Pokemon or the Charmers, both of which beat Gligar. So, and then as far as the fast moves on them go, you can go with either. They have their different roles. Wing Attack will make you more consistent against fighters, and then the Fury Cutter will make you more consistent against ground types and Probopass. So pick your poison, man. We got Steelix. Steelix is similar to Probopass, but it doesn't have as clean of a fairy and flying matchup. Like Charizard gives this guy a lot of issues, and because it uses Dragon Tail and Crunch, both of which is resisted by the Charmers, it has to land the Earthquake in order to win, and that is a very slow Earthquake. So slow that the Charm users actually have opportunities to get the 1 over on the Steelix, where Probopass just has to keep throwing Magnet Bomb. Steelix has its issues. It can beat Probopass, which is nice. But yeah, kind of a riskier version of Probopass. One mega claim to fame for Steelix, though, is that it's super deadly in the 0 shield situation. So your opponent's shields are down, your shields are down, chances are Steelix is going to take you home. Then you got Haunter and Sableye, and they just got the tricky neutral fights. It's like what they're always known for across any meta, tricky neutral guys. Problem that they have is that they fear the charm users a little bit too much. Probopass is also kind of scary for them, and if most of their targets get energy advantage over them or shield advantage over them, well then it's kind of good game. So the whole goal, if you're using a Haunter or a Sableye on your team, is to be the one that gets the energy advantage or the shield advantage in order to get the 1 over. But to do that, you typically have to switch in, and if you switch in, well now you're opening yourself up to the charm users to just show up and charm on you. So be wary. And then finally we got Drapion. I already talked about Drapion. His whole thing is that he beats this group, and then he beats the ghosts. So pretty tricky to deal with. You will probably lose to a Skarmory if you end up against one, but this group is pretty varied as far as teams go, so maybe you won't even run into a Skarmory. That is a thing. But what's also a thing for this guy is, basically everything down here just slam dunks on him. So one job Hitman does the job pretty well. I wouldn't put my chips on this guy at all. I wouldn't run out of Drapion. And there you have it. That is the Rose Cup meta simplified. Now, of course, there are other Pokemon that I didn't talk about that are pretty good. And if you want to know about them, definitely check out Lorman96's article on Game Press, which details almost any Pokemon that you'd want to use for this particular cup in really good detail. If you got any questions on this content, comment below, let me know, and I'll be happy to help you out. And if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more like it, well, make sure to subscribe to SwagTips. Drapion kind of cuts through the flying and ghost type Pokemon like a butter through hot knife. Wow.